Wrestlebuddy podcast, all about wrestling. Subscribe and follow for more content.
Welcome, Wrestle Buddies, to another exclusive interview. This week, we've got on independent wrestler and rising star, Billie Starkz.
Hello.
How are you doing today? And just plug whatever you want real quick, where people can find you.
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
Doing great.
Doing well.
It's hot out here in Colorado.
Oh, the weather here is actually really nice.
So it's hot in my kitchen.
So, get the little bit of admin out the way. We're so great to have you on.
Yes.
Looking forward to this interview, especially someone who's, so young, but still been everywhere. Like, you're everywhere from GCW to just
Force One.
Everywhere else, Paradigm.
Let me see if I can mention a few. WCWO, SLA, BLP, PPW, 01, Bizarro Lucha, SLA, FXD, PPW, Emerge, OVW, Resolute, GCW, Girl Fight, VWP, and Action.
And
Just
Girl Fight, you are the current champion there.
Yes, I am the current champion of Girl Fight and New Level Pro.
Nice.
And over the past 12 months, you've had matches with names like Trish Adora, with Deonna Purrazzo. How has being in the ring with them helped you learn over time?
I've said this a few times, just being in the ring with people who are more talented than you, because I think those women are amazing. And when I first started, I got to wrestle people like Kylie Rae, Sue Young, Jordan Grace, and it just helped my career progress so much. And just being in the ring now with the talent, it helps me just figure out new things for myself that I can work on and improve, because I know that I still have a long ways to go. A lot of people, I can always say that I will never stop learning wrestling. There's always new things coming around, and there's always the world is changing.
And with this ever-changing world, you wrestled during the pandemic, and you actually wrestled for a couple promotions during the pandemic. How crazy was that to now seeing actual faces in the crowd?
It's really crazy. So my quarantine was a little different than most. I stayed in the house most of the time, but I still had access to a ring. I know a lot of people weren't allowed to go train because their buildings were shut down. Luckily, I got to go still train and be in ring shape. And then when we started having the no fan shows, it helped me a lot, just learning how to work cameras and without a crowd. It helped me still get that emotion across. And I thought it made me a better wrestler because I learned to not rely on the fans, because so many wrestlers can tell you that you feed off the energy of people around you. And it was so weird not having that you had to make it yourself. So I feel like now my matches, when we do have fans, are even more energized than before. So during the quarantine, of course, I got a little break from just being on shows every weekend. And when I came back, I got to wrestle Cole Radrick as my first match back. He was it was his second, and I had so much fun. That was the second or third time we wrestled. We've wrestled a few times. But then wrestling in the pandemic was really weird. And when fans started coming back, it was really, really exciting. I said my first experience when I felt like the pandemic for us was almost over was the Collective with GCW and Paradigm and Black Label, when I wrestled all three of those shows, because I got to wrestle Killer Kelly, and I got to be in the Cluster, and then I was in a scramble that I won at Paradigm, And I just remember like the energy being there that like we haven't got to feel because of the pandemic. And I think it's still growing and growing, where people are starting to open back up again and the masks are starting to slow down because we're getting our vaccines. So I'm just happy for wrestling. And I know that we went through a hard time with quarantine, but I really enjoy that, like, what we went through, it helped some of us build, because I felt like the pandemic almost helped me be a better wrestler. It got me access to a lot more places because there was not as many people wrestling. So I got more eyes on me because out of the limited people who were wrestling, I was one of the many few that blew up.
And blow up you did. It's looking like a bunch
Big
of
time.
places like got you in the main event scene really quick. Like we said, you're the girl fight champion right now. You face names like Killer Kelly, Deonna Purrazzo. You were even
Shotzi
tangling
Blackheart.
it up.
Yeah, I did wrestle Shotzi.
How was that? How was that wrestling her before she went up to WWE NXT?
So I got to wrestle her twice, actually. So one was at New Level in Alabama, and we had so much fun. We were just messing around. And I think I honestly learned a lot from Shotzi. We also got to train together a few times up in Indianapolis, and then I got to wrestle her one more before she went. I had so much fun with that. It's always like fun looking back on those matches because you can see where like I pull things from each match of like, oh, I like this or I like this. And like there's stuff like Shotzi did that's a little different because Shotzi's very like out there and unique. So I felt like she helped me like be like, wow, screw it, let's have fun.
There you go. That's what it's supposed to be all about, right? Was the first time you wrestled Shotzi, was that in August 7th, 2019? Was that the first time you wrestled her, or was that the second time?
That sounds right. Yeah, that sounds like the first time.
Thank you. He stole my question, so I'm kind of stuck here.
Sorry about that. I can go on to another one of mine if you need me to.
No, actually, even with the pandemic going on, she had still wrestled in at least 16 different companies during 2020. Okay. Now, this season so far, she's wrestled for, if I remember correctly, I think 23 different companies already. So she's like superstar. You know what I mean? For a person in your position or your age, how tough do you find it that you have to come out and you have to prove to these people, like, does that do a job on your head? Does that weaken your performances in the ring at all?
I've always said this, like me and my dad have talked about this a lot of I never wanted people to judge my wrestling based off my age or judge my wrestling because I'm a female. I always wanted to just be a good professional wrestler. And I felt like a lot of people were focused on my age when I first started. They're like, oh, she's so good for being this age. She's so good for this. And I get that can play a factor, but at the end of the day, I wanted to be looked at as the same as anybody who else started. It doesn't matter that I'm young or like, I get it that like a lot of people, they see it as shocking or like, oh my God, she's doing so much with her life. And I can see that and I take it as a compliment, but I also take it as I can be so much more than this. So I always talked about like, yeah, I'm in school still wrestling and I had a part-time job for a bit and like it's just like me growing up, but I never really was like a kid. I still get like my time with my friends and go hang out and enjoy life, but this is like my business, this is my work, and this is what I love.
Well, can I ask you what were you a mark for the business? Like how did you get into the business actually should be the proper question. And did you consider yourself a mark?
Oh, most definitely. Every wrestler was once a mark in most places. Like it's very, very small chance that they weren't. Like you have to love wrestling to want to do it. Because it does beat your body up and everything else. But I was introduced to wrestling by my stepdad, who's a photographer, Mouse Wrestling Adventures. So shout out to him. But he introduced me to wrestling when I was little, and I was like, "There's violence. I love it." But I started watching like WWE, and then Raw, and then I went into NXT. I was really big on NXT for a while with like Finn Balor and when they were there. And then I went to my first independent show, which was a D1W show. And I just remember like just being entirely into it. My mom was just horrified. She's just like, and one of my favorite memories, so I have a little brother who's like a year and a half younger than me, of this guy walking over. My brother just got these nachos. My mom just bought him nachos, and he's eating them. A heel comes over, slaps out his hands, shattered all over the bleachers.
Oh no!
I'm like, let's go. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Oh, that's so cool.
But yeah, that's like why like I fell in love with wrestling, just being on the independents, and it made me realize that, oh, I can actually do this. Like it's not like this outlandish thing. There's like something else.
Right on. I'd like to get a little further into your experiences with the NXT UK people like Kaylee Ray and all that. Were you intimidated by her at all, like with her standing in the wrestling industry?
I've always said she's been a huge inspiration for women's wrestling.
Right.
I was so happy to be able to wrestle her, and I think she's one of the best just wrestlers in the planet right now. Just like I love her work, and I think she helps women's wrestling more than she understands or takes credit for. But I was never intimidated by her. She's so welcoming and like wants everybody to just be comfortable and happy. I just remember, so like I always talk about how I never get nerves before my matches, and I remember like sitting there and I'm like, I've never been more excited for a match. I just felt like the tingly of like, hey.
Getting the charge there, yeah. Do you have
I do. So with you wrestling names like Deonna Purrazzo and Killer Kelly, where you've seen both of them go and kind of start thriving in more mainstream promotions, is there a chance that we could see you getting the call to like maybe an AEW Dark or popping up on Impact at all?
We will see what the world comes to. I feel like it's going to take some time. Like I feel like a lot of people don't want to touch me because of my age, and which is completely understandable. But I would love the opportunity to whenever I had the chance.
And you're already working such top level talent. Like we also said, Trish Adora. I saw you scrapping it up with AJ Gray as well. That's got to be intimidating. I'm intimidated by him, and yeah, no.
I love him so much. There's like a funny story. So we have like a super old dog. She's like 20. She's 21 going 22, like super old. And she hates everybody, has no teeth left, hates everybody. AJ Gray comes over and like she doesn't like anybody. He lays down on the couch. She immediately walks up and just sits on his chest. And I'm like, what just happened? And AJ goes like, oh, it's just cranky two old people hanging out. Let us be.
You are literally everywhere on the indie scene. So you get interactions with some amazing people right now, especially with the independent scene being as open as it is with all these WWE releases as well. Are there any names that you're excited seeing maybe come onto the indies with you?
Honestly, I always look at them, but I try to just see where their life is going, because I would love to see them pop up on the indies. Like Ruby Riott, she was like one of the people when they got released. I was like, oh my God, that's like, I'm sorry you lost your job, but this is like, oh my God, she can be coming to the independents. And I feel like it is a weird like transition from like WWE and being signed to having a steady paycheck than going to the independents where it's kind of all over the place. So I really don't know.
I'm sorry, I didn't know we wanted to continue. How difficult did you find it to keep how shall we say, I guess the proper term is steady employment? How difficult is it for you at being a younger age?
So I've always said, like, I really have not had to struggle. I have really supportive parents who even help me with wrestling. Like my mom helps so much with the merchandise. She is very interested in that and the gear design. She's like, "Ooh, everything can look pretty." So that's the part of wrestling she likes. And then my dad
Right.
is the driver. He can do road trips like it's nothing. I once saw him drive to Minnesota and back all by himself. And for us, that's like a stupid drive. um, but I always like I've said with wrestling, I've had like a really good momentum with it. And when I do get a break, I always have something else going on in my life. So I've never really had to struggle with like a steady employment with that. And then when I had a
Great.
job, uh, my job was very like working with me when I wanted off and all that. That's what was most important to me because I was like, wrestling comes first. You can come second.
Got to prioritize.
Oh, big time. If you don't do that, I mean, you're not going to you're not going to do it anyway. How? Oh, well, you said you mentioned your parents help you and all that. Oh, what did they think when you said you want? Okay, this is what I want to do. How did they
They
take
were
that?
So my dad was the one who introduced me to it. So he was very like, cool. And then my mom was like, okay, wrestling? And I was like, yeah, wrestling. And there was a training school in my area. So like my mom takes me to one of the training classes because we always joked with Madman Pondo that he was gonna be the one to train me. I was like, Pondo, when we get into the ring. And then he introduced me to Too Tough Tony, who owns Grindhouse, which is where I got trained. We went to one of their training sessions and my mom took me after cheerleading practice and she like remembered me getting into the ring and then my dad came later and you just see the biggest smile on my face and he was like, yep, she's never getting out. And she was like, this is what makes her happy, then let it do it.
There you go.
That's so amazing. That's great to hear that you had parents that were able to help out and willing to help out with that.
Oh yeah, that definitely rocks. Can I get some of your thoughts on stuff like ROH, other independents like ROH, Evolve, and all that stuff, NXT, AEW, WWE kind of thing? Like, is that where you want to end up? Pursuing the longevity of your career.
So I've like been watching a lot of wrestling, but I always say like there's so much wrestling to keep up with. And I really truly don't know where I'm going to end up. I always said whatever is going to make let me make a living and like make this my life and my job. Well, when I first started watching wrestling, it was WWE, and then what made me fall in love with wrestling was the independent. So I really don't know where I would end up. But I think ROH is great right now with their women tournament that's going on. I have a lot of friends who are doing that. And I think people should be paying attention to that. So shout out to that. Roxy is about to have a match with Sumi, which I'm really excited to see and how that goes. The promo they just cut for it was amazing. I watched that last night. And then there's like Super 8 going right now that I was watching before we hopped on. But I think like wherever I end up, it would be somewhere that I'm happy and making a living and just enjoying wrestling because that's what matters at the end of the day.
Okay, can I get your thoughts on Mickie James and Gail Kim working hand in hand with the NWA with the Empower pay-per-view coming up, or if it's already happened?
I don't believe it's happened yet. I know it was happening soon. But I thought that was really great for women. It's going to get a spotlight on women's wrestling, which I always think is a great thing. And then I also feel like it's going to give a lot of people an opportunity to shine because I feel like there's so many people that haven't been seen yet and have so many great talent. So yeah, I think that was a great opportunity for a lot of females.
Could you see yourself on that card?
Totally. If the opportunity came, I would love to. I believe I can't be on that show though because of licensing. You have to get a license in that state and you can't get one until you're 18, sadly. I wish there was a bypass. I'd sign the papers right now.
How hard is it to juggle your job, shall we say, your career or your wrestling and your school work? Like, how hard is that to keep up to date on everything for you at
I'm really good about staying organized. So it actually helped a lot during the pandemic when I was doing school online and wrestling. Because I'd literally have my laptop in the car ride going to school and heading to shows. I talked about during Mania weekend before my DF match at Jimmy Lloyd's show. I am literally on the phone doing school while like figuring out my match. When I'm like, okay, I'm almost done. Okay, cool. And I'm like finishing up school while that was all going on. And I like warned my teachers. I was like, this week I'm probably not going to answer any of your questions. My work will be done. But
hey, that's all they need to know, right?
But I also like finished a whole like summer reading project while I've been traveling.
Wow.
Like while I'm in the car, I would
Awesome.
listen to an audiobook, and then I just finished my like presentation on it on one of the trips to Jersey for the last JCW show. I was finishing up like typing my stuff and knocked that out. So like I feel like school's always come easy to me, and juggling it with wrestling has been well. And I've also had like my teachers work with me when I'm like, hey, this week I'm out of town, I'm not going to be able to do this. And like I had to miss Fridays sometimes because I would be like, I have to leave early for the show, and I would just do the makeup work. My PE teacher, this is like my greatest story of like school and wrestling. My PE teacher, her work was like, oh, you need to do like 30 minutes of working out if you don't make it to my class, and I need proof that you worked out. So I would send her my wrestling matches, and she would check it off and be like, yep, you did it. And I was like, this is
right on, yeah. I see the flips. Yeah, okay, there's a somersault there. Yeah.
If that's not exercise, I don't know what is.
There you go. Right. Who would be your I like to get, who is your favorite male wrestler, and who is your favorite female wrestler at this point in time in your career?
So favorite male wrestler would be Finn Balor or Kevin Owens. I love both of them. And then my favorite female wrestler would be Millie McKenzie.
Nice.
Millie McKenzie's a very good shout.
I have to be biased about Kevin Owens, seeing as I live in Canada, right? So, but you know, you had some great. Yeah, that was a great choice. I was really surprised that you mentioned him and Finn Balor. Like I was. Can you see yourself working with Finn or Kevin at some point?
I would love to. If I had the opportunity to, I would be over the moon and just been like, yes, this is so exciting. It's one of those like awestruck moments. If that ever happened, I feel like we would have such an entertaining match, and I can learn so much from both of them.
I'd like to see you in a three-way with Deonna Purrazzo and Shotzi Blackheart. I think that would be so amazing.
What?
You said that you fell in love with wrestling thanks to the indies. So is it safe to assume that your favorite all-time match is from an independent show?
Yes.
Right on.
I would love to find out what your favorite match is and why.
So one of my favorite matches is Zack Sabre Jr. versus Prince Devitt, which is Finn Balor when he was on the Independence at Progress.
Such a good match.
It was so great. There's another one that's a tag match of Millie McKenzie versus Pete Dunne. Who did they wrestle? They tagged together against somebody, and I just remember Millie like swinging around a belt in her mouth and then slapping Pete Dunne at some point, and I was like, yes, this is what I love. But junior match, like Prince Devitt, I have it memorized in my head because I've watched it so many times, like showing other people. I'm like, you have to watch this.
Nice.
But my favorite match is just because of like the emotion they had behind it, and also Prince Devitt's entrance. and then how they incorporated different styles. Like they're two like polar opposite styles. Like Finn Balor has this hard striking, and like he also has the double stomp, and then there's Zack Sabre Jr., who's more technical based, and you can see both of them using their own styles to compete with each other. And I thought it was
Nice.
just a great presentation.
Um, can I get your thoughts on Walter and Dragunov? Ilya Dragunov. Have you seen that the first match that they had?
I actually haven't got to watch it. I love Walter matches
Right.
because one of my friends, we always joke that he's just like mini Walter. That's what he wants to
Right
call
on, right
it.
on.
So he'll react to Walter matches. He had like one match and the finish was like chop chop lariat, so we'll just go around and say chop chop lariat to each other.
You may be able to see the second match because it's going to be at NXT Takeover 36
Nice.
this summer, and it's billed basically as the greatest rivalry in NXT UK right now. And I have to say that it is. Like the first match was like I was going, you know, like my jaw was dropping, right? Can you see yourself doing something like in ECW or ECW type stuff, like, or is that what you're doing now?
I really don't think so. Like it's not out of the question,
Right.
but currently it's not like at the top of the list of things.
Gotcha. Wow.
If you could have a match with 3 wrestlers, past, present, and future, who would they be?
Wow. Ooh. So I want Millie McKenzie, of course.
Yes.
Jessica Havoc.
Oh.
Who else do I want? I'm like, there's so many choices.
Because you can throw in intergender stuff too, you know. I mean.
Yeah. Eddie Guerrero.
Oh man.
No, it's such a weird match.
Great.
But I feel like it would be so fun.
Yeah.
And you'd learn so much.
Oh, everybody learned off of Eddie. Everybody did, yeah. Do you like the traveling around the country to get like? Does it get on your nerves when you have to travel so much to get to certain places?
I feel like I have fun. Like I always love traveling.
Right.
I always feel like I'm stuck at home. It's like, why am I still here? I need to be out in the world. So like car rides and stuff don't bother me. There have been times where I'm like, are we still in the car? Can we get there? I need you to speed it up.
Are we there yet?
My favorite thing is when I'll say it to Cole, and Cole Roderick will just speed up. You see him just start zooming. He's like,
nice.
That was going to be my next question, is if it's your family that travels you around or if you hitch rides with a bunch of the other talent.
I will at least have one of my parents always go with me, since I am not 18 yet and I don't want to put the responsibility on someone else, and I don't think my parents would like to do that either. And it's not like I'm uncomfortable with being around these people. These people are like family to me. But at the same time, I don't want to put this responsibility on someone to look after me, even though I could take care of myself. What happens if I get hurt? Someone has to take me to the hospital. I don't want it to be one of the boys that has to deal with me when I'm 10 hours away from my family.
Don't need AJ Gray all scarred up from a death match taking you into a hospital.
How different are the vibes from company to company that you go to? Like, do you feel like sometimes you might have to change the vibe or to fit in or whatever it is?
I feel like I don't really change myself, but the vibe is different everywhere. Like there's some that are like more family friendly, and then there's like the GCWs who's like have fun, do whatever you want. And there's certain like energies that you can feel and tell based on like how the company brands themselves, how they do this. So there are different vibes of shows, but I feel like as a wrestler, you can learn how to fit yourself in at any place. So like I would wrestle like at GCW, and then I would go to like this different show in like Tennessee, and like they're not going to have the same vibe, but I can change how I wrestle a little bit to fit what the song wants and what they're going to react to.
Gotcha. Maddie, your turn, brother.
All right. We are nearing towards the end of our questions. A few more. We've already asked if you would like to see yourself in like AEW, NXT, WWE. Where do you, how should I word this? If you were able to bring yourself and another person with you from the circuit that you're on to any of those promotions with you, who would you take and why?
Marcus Mathers. He's became really, really close in my life over the past year. We met like the week before Mania weekend, and he loves wrestling, and I can see it of like what he truly loves to do is wrestling. So I would take him with me, and I feel like he's a great person to have around because he wants me to grow and I want him to grow. So it's always that push back and forth to push each other to our limits.
Nice.
All right. Do you have any other questions, Harold?
Can you come to Canada?
I'm getting my passport very soon.
Nice. Come to London, New Brunswick, IHW. I'll talk to them and say, bring this girl in. Come on, man. I want to see some talent here. No.
Hey, the blue hair American needs to come over here.
Oh, big time. You'd fit in. You would fit in. Trust me. No, actually, I just want to stop and say thank you for taking time out of your busy day and your schedule and all that to spend some time answering our questions and all that stuff. It means a lot to us as interviewers, because we're kind of just learning the craft ourselves also, right? So we like it when we can learn something, and I've got to say I have learned something today, and it's all good with me. On to you, Matt.
And I am so glad that we were able to interview you, Billy. It was great to have you on. And like Harold said, we're going to be seeing you everywhere because you are such a great rising star. And that's not going to burn out anytime soon. So before we go, I'm going to give you the chance, Billy. Plug whatever you want. Fill out any more admin.
Okay.
Plug your merch. Plug your merch.
All of my social media is at Billie Starkz, BILLIE, and then Starkz is STARKZ. I'm fancy with the Z, so don't forget about it. And then I have a big cartel you can go check out. And then you can go check out bigstarksbrand.com. That will have all my merchandise. I have cow soap. I have t-shirts. I have limited time futures t-shirts that are up right now. And I have stickers and all types of goodies, so go check that out. And yeah, thank you guys so much for having me.
And thank you so much for coming on again, Billy. And Wrestle Buddies, thank you for watching. It's been a blast to interview Billie Starkz, and we look forward to seeing you guys in our next one. Bye-bye.
Peace and love. Pass it on and keep rocking, Billy.
Thank you so much.